So last night for homework you had green workbook. So it was the front 29 and then the back independent work part. So we'll go over each page section by section. So what I'll do is I'll put the answers up. So you need to check your answers and make any corrections if you need to. So for part 1 in the workbook that we did, they gave us a big number and they gave us a small number, and we had to subtract in order to find the missing small number. These all have a small number of 5, so if I'm using my touch math, I'm going to start with the big number in my head, and then I'm going to use the 5 on my touch sheet in order to count backwards and then to find the missing small number. So here, when I'm starting with 7, I've got 7 in my head, and then I touch, because I'm counting backwards, I'm going to touch backwards on 6. So 7's out here in my head, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So I know that this one is going to be 2. Same thing when I come here for 8. I have 8 in my head, and then I'm going to touch on 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So I'm going to go ahead. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and fill in all of the answers for this section. When you get to this part, we'll write the subtraction problems in. So once you see all of the answers up here, I need you to check to make sure that you get any corrections made that you need to do. Okay, so here are all the answers for the number families for A through L. So you can pause the video to check your numbers for that. And then I'm also going to go ahead and write the subtraction problems here. So when we're writing a subtraction problem, we always start with the big number and then work backwards down the arrow. So for subtraction, you work backwards down the arrow. So starting with my big number is 8, subtracting 5 equals 3. The same thing here. I'm going to start with my big number and work backwards down the arrow. So I'm going to do 10 minus 5 equals 5. 7 minus 5 equals 2. And 9 minus 5 equals 4. All right, so pause the video to check all of your answers, and then come back when you are ready for the next section. So for this section, there is subtraction, and these are going to have regrouping. Sometimes they're going to have regrouping in the ones column, and other times they're going to have regrouping in the tens column. So you have to be very careful to make sure that you always have a bigger or equal number on top, because like here, if we don't have the bigger number on top, that's what we have to look for when we need to regroup. So looking at A, I'm here in the ones column, so I have 5 minus 5 is 0. And here I've got 0 minus 1. So since I have a 0 and that's a smaller number than 1, I can't do the subtraction. So I'm going to look next door and I'm going to borrow. So now I've got 10 minus 1 is 9. And 1 minus 1 is 0, so I don't have to write anything. So you have to be very careful. Some of the things I've been seeing lately is either just reversing the numbers in your head and doing 1 minus 0, which will get you a wrong answer. Or also when we're borrowing, I've been seeing that we've been forgetting to cross out when we're actually taking away from it. So we have to remember that we always have to cross out to actually borrow, because if we have 1 minus 1, it should be 0, but if we're forgetting to cross it off, 2 minus 1 is going to get us an incorrect answer. So always be very careful when you're solving these types of problems. So here I've got 0 minus 0 is 0, and now again I've got down to 1 minus 9, which I can't do because 1 is smaller. So if I have 1, I can't take 9 away from 1. So I'm going to go next door and borrow. So I've got 2, and now I've got 5 minus 2 is 3. So for B, you should have 320. When I get to C, I can see here that I've got 3 minus 4. So when I've got 3 minus 4, I know that I'm going to have to borrow, because if I have 3, I can't take 4 away from it because 4 is too many. So when I go here to borrow, I now have 13. To take away 4 is 9. 7 minus 7. So these are equal. I don't have to borrow because 7 minus 7 is going to be 0. I have enough. And 9 minus 4 is 5. So for C, you should have 509. For D, I'm in the ones column, and I have 3 minus 1 is 2. That's not a problem. But now I'm in the tens column, and I've got a 0. I've got nothing minus 5. So if I've got nothing, I can't give away 5. So I'm going to have to go next door and borrow. So I'm going to make that a 7, and now I've got 10 minus 5, which I can do. So I've got 52. So take a pause. If you need to make any corrections, go ahead and do that now, and then come back for the next section. Okay, so for part 3, what we're going to have to do is we have to draw the rectangle that they're describing in the words here, and then I'm going to have to solve the multiplication problem for the area. So what they're telling us here is that the rectangle is 5 feet high. High means how tall is it? So when I say high, that's where we're going to be working with the up and down arrow right here. And then they tell us that it's 7 feet wide. Wide is how wide it is side to side. So they've already drawn in the line here for 7 feet. So I'm going to put 7 in the box here to show that 7 feet wide, the line is already drawn for us. So now here, before in one of these other lessons that we did, we had to estimate how high it would be. So if I know that from here to here is 7, that this long of a line is 7, I know that 5 is going to be almost as high as 7 is wide, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So I don't want to draw it to go all the way up here, because that would be a very long line, and that wouldn't show that 5 is supposed to be smaller than 7. So if I'm going to fill in 5 feet, I'm going to make my best estimate, and I also know that I can't make it this high, because this high would be very, very short. So we need to make it almost as long as the 7 line, but not quite. So we're going to try and make my best guess here. That's probably pretty close, maybe a little bit on the long side. But anyway, so I'm going to fill in my other corners here. So now I've got a box that's showing 7 feet wide and 5 feet high. It's almost as long as the 7, but not quite. So make sure that your lines are showing that. Make sure that your line doesn't go all the way up here for 5, because that would be too long. So now I have to do the multiplication, and if I do 7 times 5, that's going to give me 35, but I need to remember my units, and since I did multiplication, because I did the area, I know that it's going to have to be square feet. So what they're showing us on the next one here is that we have a rectangle that's 5 feet high. So I'm going to write that in for 5 feet in this box. And if we know that this length is 5, I know that I need to make 4 the width, how wide it is. So 4 is going to be very close to how long 5 is, but it's got to be a little bit shorter because 4 is less than 5. So if I look at here, I can see how long that is, and I'm going to make my best estimate. Remember that I can't make it go all the way out here, because that would mean that 4 is bigger than 5, and that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to make my best guess that 4 would come maybe out there, so that might be a little bit long. So 4 might come that long, right? Because you can see that this is a little bit shorter than this one is tall. So I'll go ahead and make my rest of my box. Oops, still a little bit long. But you guys get the idea that, actually let me redo this. Make this one a little bit better. Okay. So, and I'll fill in my 4 here. So then I have to do the multiplication. I've got 5 times 4, and 5 times 4 equals 20. And my units have to be, again, square feet. So if you need to check the size of your boxes or you need to check the multiplication, go ahead and do that here. Okay, so in the workbook on part 4, which is on the back page that we were just working on, here are the answers for A, B, C, and D. So check your work here. If you did not get an answer that matches, try to rework the problem instead of just copying down the right answer. So if you didn't get the same one that I did, just pause the video and then rework the problem to see if you can try it again to get an answer that matches. Remember to use the Touch Math sheet if you need it. So pause the video here to check your work before going on to the next section. Okay, so for these word problems, they are asking all about sand. And so what you have to decide is whether somebody is getting more sand added or whether they are losing sand, whether they're getting rid of it. So if we read A, it says that a man had 344. So I'm going to write in my number 344 because that's what we're starting with. And then it says he bought 287 more pounds. So when I'm thinking about it, that if I'm buying more of something, that means that I'm getting more of it. So I'm adding into what I already have. So we have 287, and we know that we're adding onto it because we're getting more sand than what we already started out with. So we'll go ahead and do the adding. And you should have 631 pounds of sand that he ended up with. Okay, so let's look at B. B says that a woman had 556 pounds of sand. So that's what I'm going to write in first, 556 pounds of sand. And then she got 368 more pounds of sand. So we've put 368. And since it says that she got more, we're going to add because there's getting more. We're getting a bigger pile of sand. We're getting a bigger pile of sand. That means that we're going to add to what we already have. So we'll go ahead and do the math here. You should have 924 pounds of sand that she ended up with altogether. So for C, it says that a man had 760 pounds of sand. So that'll be our first number because that's what we're starting out with, 760. And then it says that he used up 232 pounds of sand. So if the 232 is my next number, and it says that it's getting used up, which means that I don't have it anymore. I'm getting rid of it, and my pile of sand is going to be getting smaller. So if my pile of sand is getting smaller, that means that I'm losing or I'm taking away, I'm going to subtract sand from my pile. So I'm going to look here to solve my subtraction, and I've got a 0 minus 2. And if I've got a 0, I can't give away 2, so I'm going to have to borrow from next door. Okay, so if you need to rework any of these problems, go ahead and pause the video and do that now, and then come back for part 6. So part 6 has you practicing some multiplication problems. This can also be done using your touch math sheet to help you do your skip counting. But let's look at what we're looking at here. So here, I can choose which one I want to count by. If I want to count by 2s, I can count by 2s. Or if I want to count by 9s, I can count by 9s. So if I choose to count by 2s, I'm going to count by 2 9 times. So if I'm using my touch math, which has the dots on it, I'm going to count ahead 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So on your touch math with your dots, we've now counted ahead 9 times. We've used the number 9, and we touched it as we counted by 2s. And we got to 18. The same thing here. Even though the 9 comes first, I can count by 9s 2 times. So I'm going to count by here and here. So if I wanted to count 9, 18, I could do that. Or if I wanted to count by 2s 9 times, I can do that too. We just have to use the touch math to make sure that we're not counting too far, because 9 is a lot of times to count ahead. When you're doing multiplication, it doesn't matter which number comes first, right? So it doesn't matter if the 9 comes first or the 2 comes first. You see how here is 2 times 9 and here is 9 times 2? You're still going to get exactly the same answer no matter which is coming first. So if I was going to solve D, let me make sure it's going to look like your, so this is what it looks like on your touch math, not with the line on it. So I've got this. And the ones with the circles around it, remember, we touched twice. So I'm going to count by fives 7 times. So I'm going to count 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Okay, and this one, I can either count by 9s 3 times, or I can count by 3s 9 times. So let's count by 9s 3 times. So on your touch math, got our dots here. We've got 9, 18, 27. Okay, when I'm counting by 10s, I'm going to count by 10s 5 times. So I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. The other way when you're counting by 10s is you just take whatever number that you have and you add a 0 after it. That's also how you can do it by 10s. All right, so if you choose, you can count by 8s, but what we'll do is we'll count by 5s 8 times. So if I've got my 8s, and I've got my dots here, because each of these are going to be counted twice. Okay, so let's count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Okay, so those are, if you need to go ahead and redo any of those problems, pause the video and make your corrections here, and then come back for the next part. So for part 7, they gave us a table. The inside numbers are all filled in here, but we need to fill in the totals along the side and along the bottom. So what I do to find this total is I need to know how much snow fell in SnowPass on Monday and Wednesday and Thursday, because they're asking for the total for all days. So I'm going to do 0 plus 1 plus 10. So I do 0 plus 1 plus 10, I'm going to get 11. Okay? Same thing when I go across here. When I want to find the total for White Butte, I'm going to go ahead and do 0 plus 3 plus 9. So 0 plus 3 is 3, and 3 plus 9 is 12. Okay, and here for River Lodge, we do 9 plus 4, which is 13, and then 13 plus 7 is 20. Okay, so now in order to fill the boxes on the bottom, I have to start here and work my way down. So here I've got 0 plus 0 is 0, and then 0 plus 9 is 9. That's how much snow fell in all 3 places on Monday. And here, I'm going to do 1 plus 3, which is 4, and then 4 plus 4 is 8. And working my way down here, I've got 10. 10 plus 9 is 19. 19 plus 7 is 26. Okay, so make sure you have the correct numbers so that if we have the correct numbers here, we'll be able to answer our questions more accurately. So here they're asking you which day had the smallest total snowfall. So what we want to know is the total snowfall. Was it Monday that had the smallest total, Wednesday that had the smallest total, or Thursday that had the smallest total? So when I look at the total for Monday, I see I have 9, Wednesday has 8, and Thursday has 26. So if I'm looking for the smallest, I know that 8 is the smallest. But I can't write the number 8 here because they're asking us which day. So when I find the smallest number, I need to go back up and figure out that Wednesday had the smallest total of snowfall. Then the next one is saying, where did the most snow fall? So for B, where did the most snow fall? So we need to find a place that had the most snow. They didn't give us a day, which means that we're looking for the total for that place. So the total for SnowPass is 11. For White Butte was 12. And for River Lodge was 20. So 20 here is the biggest number. So that's the highest amount that fell, but they're asking for where. Where is telling me that they need the answer in the form of a place. So I'm going to write River Lodge for B. Okay? And for C, which day had the largest snowfall? So they didn't ask for a day at one place. We need a day, a total for Monday, total for Wednesday, total for Thursday. The largest out of these three is obviously 26 is the largest. But I can't put 26 as my answer because they didn't say how much was the largest snowfall. They asked us for which day. So when I look at 26, I see that 26 fell on Thursday. So Thursday is going to be my answer for the last question. Okay, so once this is done and you've made your corrections, this is the end of the homework. So show a teacher that you're done and then go on to the next video, which is the lesson 30 lesson that'll walk you all the way through it.